Hello everyone, welcome to Fast Cloud. On the 12th of March, the Union government had invoked the Epidemic Act and the Disaster Management Act in order to tackle the coronavirus pandemic ongoing throughout the world. So, what is the Disaster Management Act and what is the Epidemic Act? What will be the impact of invoking these acts in our country are all topics that we'll look into in this video. So without delay, let's proceed to the video. On the 12th of March, the Union government had invoked the Epidemic Act of 1897 and the Disaster Management Act of 2005 in order to tackle the ongoing coronavirus threat. So COVID-19, the disease that is caused by the coronavirus, that is coronavirus disease 2019, has been now declared as a pandemic by the World Health Organization. So a disease is classified as a pandemic when it is prevalent throughout a country or throughout the world. So now coronavirus has been classified as a pandemic by the WHO. As of March 14th, the number of deaths that have been associated with the disease stands at 5,388 estimated, and the number of people estimated to be infected by the disease stands at 1,42,320. Now, taking a brief look at the disease, coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 is an infectious disease that is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Now, SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, Coronavirus 2. Now, the common symptoms of the disease include fever, cough, and shortness of breath. The more uncommon and rarer symptoms include muscle pain, sputum production, and sore throat. Now, majority of the cases, infected cases, result only in mild symptoms. Some progress to pneumonia and multi-organ failure. Now, coming to the mortality rate of the disease, mortality rate stands for the deaths per number of diagnosed cases, and it is now estimated to be between 1 to 5% for the COVID-19 disease, and this varies by age and other health conditions. So the mortality rate stands at 1 to 5%, that which means that out of 100 diagnosed cases or 100 people that have been diagnosed as infected with the virus, anywhere from 1 to 5% will see fatality. Now let's take a look at the Disaster Management Act of 2005 that has been invoked by the Union government in order to tackle the ongoing coronavirus crisis. Now the draft of the act reads that the Disaster Management Act provides for the effective management of disasters and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Now, in the ongoing coronavirus threat and its subsequent crisis, demand has increased for products such as sanitizers, surgical masks, surgical gloves, etc. Now, under clause 1 of subsection 2 of section 10 of the Disaster Management Act, the NPPA, that is the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, has now been mandated to regulate the availability and prices of items such as surgical and protective masks, hand sanitizers, gloves and so on, which I had earlier mentioned, the demand for which has increased. And these items will now be treated as essential commodities until the 30th of June. Now, under the Essential Commodities Act, which is another government act, it states that the government can ask manufacturers to both enhance their production capacity of these items that have been now classified as essential commodities and to also make the supply chain smooth under the legal and also under the Legal Metrology Act, which is also now in force. The state, that is the government, can also ensure the sale of these items only at the maximum retail price. So as we all know, during times of crisis, profiteering is a very common phenomenon, and where the extreme demand for a commodity is usually met with a hike in price. Now, under the Legal Metrology Act, which is being enforced currently in the coronavirus crisis, the sale of these items for which demand has increased exorbitantly will still be ensured at the maximum retail price. Now, another act that was invoked as a response to the ongoing coronavirus crisis is the Epidemic Act of 1897. So, taking a brief look at the history of the act, the law was first enacted to tackle the bubonic plague in the state of Bombay in former colonized British India. And this law is meant for the provision of special powers that are required for the implementation of containment measures in order to control the spread of contagious diseases. Hence the name Epidemic Act. Now, following the ongoing 2019-2020 coronavirus crisis, the Cabinet Secretary of India on the 11th of March 2020 had announced all states and union territories to invoke provisions of Section 2 of the Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. Now let's take a brief look at the Section 2 of the Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. So the draft of the Section 2 of the Act reads that when at any time the state government is satisfied that the state or any part of the state is threatened with an outbreak of any dangerous epidemic disease, then the state government, if it thinks that the ordinary provisions of the law for the time being, that is, the provisions of the law that exist for the time being enforced, are insufficient for the purpose, then the government may take or require or empower any person to take such measures and may also issue public notice and prescribe such temporary regulations to be observed by the public or any person or class of person as the government shall deem necessary in order to prevent the outbreak of such diseases or the spread of such diseases thereof, and the government may also determine in what manner and by whom any expenses incurred, including the compensation expenses, shall be defrayed. So the government may also determine in what manner and by whom the expenses shall be defrayed. Now the Section 2 of the Epidemic Diseases Act also provides for the state government to take measures and prescribe regulations for the purpose of inspection of persons that are traveling in and out of the state through railway or any other means of transport, and also provides for the segregation of persons in hospitals or temporary accommodation services or otherwise of persons that have been suspected by the inspecting officer of being carriers of the disease. Also, a very important point to be noted here is that under Section 3 of the Epidemic Diseases Act, disobeying any regulation or order that are made under this act shall be made punishable under Section 188 of the IPC, Indian Penal Code. Now, Section 188 is with regards to disobedience of order duly promulgated by a public servant. So, under Section 3 of the Act, if you disobey any order or regulation that are being passed, it shall be made an offence under Section 188 of the IPC. So now let's take a look at the overview of the measures that have been taken by the Indian government in order to tackle the ongoing coronavirus crisis. So India has now suspended all visas except for categories such as diplomatic and employment visas till the 15th of April in order to contain the spread of the disease. The government has also strongly advised Indians to avoid all non-essential travels abroad, and this suspension will be coming into effect from the 13th of March. Also, the Home Ministry has prohibited cruise ships, crews or passengers from coronavirus hit nations that have been classified as affected by the virus to come into India till the 31st of March under these acts. A very significant point here is that the Indian state of Karnataka has become the first state in the country to notify regulations to prevent the outbreak and the spread of the coronavirus under the Epidemic Act of 1897. So, in essence, Karnataka is the first state in the country to invoke the Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked our video. Please leave your feedback in the form of comments, and please remember to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.